Good morning, everybody. It's Positive Tuesday today, October 25th, 2022. Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald is off today due to I don't know what he's doing. Speaking engagement or something weird. So today I'm joined by two very solid dudes to have, like a round table style discussion about, whatever comes up, I guess. One man in one corner at 6 feet. Well, we won't get into the weights. Is Washburn County District Attorney Aaron Marcoux, who, prosecutes criminals, and the other, Brian Cole, who, as most people know, was a career criminal and has spent 27 years in prison. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting show. But first, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy, presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work both on the outside and on the inside of your home or business. Like Fitzy and I, they believe it's the little things that make a big difference. Positive Tuesday is also brought to you in part by the Wisconsin Lakes team. It's still a great time to buy or sell a home, and when you do, we recommend our friends from the Wisconsin Lakes team. Anyone can say that they're an agent, but not everyone treats their clients as they would like to be treated, and that's what Aaron and Katie do. Find out more, visit them at lakesteamwy.com. Also supporting the show are our friends at Industrial Safety. We all know that Industrial Safety sells and services practically everything that goes into a fire station and on a firefighter. But they also provide kitchen suppression system maintenance, inspections, and installs. For more information about this service and to see a list of all of their available services, visit their website at industrialsafetystore.com. Hey guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is awesome. Yeah, so Fitzy's off today, and good morning, Sharon. Yeah, Fitzy's off today. He gave me a call yesterday, and a speaking arrangement or an engagement or something came up kind of last minute, so he had to attend that, so I assume he'll be back here next week. And I figured, well, two of my very good friends, the two of you, Brian and Aaron, I'm like, well, we totally have to do this. Brian, you used to do a show where we did like two of these with Fitzy when you were on. I think you were even down in Barron County. We call it like our Cops and Robbers episodes or something. Yeah. So I don't know what we're going to call this one with the district attorney and, you, but we'll have to come up with some kind of moniker.
No doubt.
So, yeah, thanks, Aaron, for coming on this morning. It looks like the last time you were on, which was a while ago, I think you were at home. It doesn't look like you were at home unless you just have all that stuff up and like to have a tie on at home. Where are you?
No, I'm at my office right now.
Oh, okay. Is Drusha there?
She is. Your wife is just on the other side of the wall. That's
good. Story. She better be working, making that money.
Yeah, because Lord knows you ain't.
Oh, I see. I see how this show's going to go, Chuck. Okay. So, Fitz and I usually start with something like, positive in our lives, but I was talking, right before we went live, Aaron brought up something that I thought was great, and that is what's on our hearts. Maybe we just start there. And if you don't mind, Aaron, even though it was totally your idea, I want to go first. Is that okay?
It's your show, right?
Yep.
So I guess I don't have a choice.
All right. What's on my heart is actually thankfulness over the last 24 hours, and even this morning, because we do these shows obviously every Tuesday, and we find, like Sharon, who has already said good morning, we have a lot of, I don't know what you call them, regulars, or I kind of now I'm looking at it like Positive Tuesday family. And it's not just I'm thankful and appreciative that they watch and they comment and they say things, but a lot of people I follow on Facebook as well, and it's really interesting to see their lives, and I'm just so thankful. And speaking of, this is what kind of started it. Congratulations is in order for, I don't know what we call it, Positive Tuesday family members, and that is Amanda. She's obviously usually watches every show every single week. She just got married to a Mike Nelson. I don't know who that Mike Nelson jerk is, but I'm assuming.
Congratulations, Amanda.
Yeah, no kidding. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely
awesome. And then lastly, just this morning, good morning, Rick and Alicia. Dirk Miller also watches the show every Tuesday. He actually just messaged this morning and said, sorry, Ben, I won't be able to watch this morning. The Chase unit is going in for services today. Now, Dirk always gives us the weather updates, but he wanted to make sure that he gave the weather update, even though it couldn't be on. And he said it will be dry week. Highs will be close to 50 today and tomorrow. Temps warming into the mid-50s for the rest of the week. Could be back into the 60s for the weekend. And have a great day. So that's what's on my heart, man, is just appreciation for our Positive Tuesday family. So, Aaron, why don't you go next?
Well, I think that's awesome. I think thankfulness is definitely a good one. What's been on my heart lately, I guess, and Brian and I had a chance to talk about this a little bit before the show, is our youth in our area here. I know that Brian just had a youth event that had an amazing turnout because I talked to one of the guest speakers there, is a good friend of mine. We go to church together. I coach youth basketball and youth football here at the middle school in Shell Lake, and hopefully we'll be getting involved in baseball coming up pretty soon. But and I know it's Positive Tuesday, but I see a lot of these kids, and I coach myself. I kind of let a little bit of the secret out of the bag with the football team because coaches helped raise me when I was a kid. I never met my biological father. I didn't know that end of things, you know what I mean? And so coaches and other people really stepped into my life and showed me what it was to be a man and to be a good individual. So I try and give back in that way, in that coaching way. And I see a lot of kids from broken homes and a lot of kids that need some good environment and good Christian examples. And that's what's on my heart, man, is our kids. They're our future. Without them, we have nothing. We leave nothing behind. So I was excited to talk to Brian a little bit about his event because it was a massive turnout. And these kids are looking for something positive in this world that has too much negative. And it's beautiful to see that attraction towards the good and trying to get away from the bad.
Yeah,
that makes any sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And that is, you're 100% right. 100% right. And you were talking about Christian men. And first of all, we need a lot more of those. And by the way, Christianity and or God is likely going to be discussed during the show. So if that appalls you, just turn it off now. I'm not saying like this is a Bible study here, but we are three Christian men. I would say I'm more of a struggling Christian, but I guess maybe we all are. So that will probably come up. But yeah, having those role models, and actually, Aaron, and I've known you for a long time, I didn't know that you didn't know your father.
Yeah, well, I unaffectionately refer to him as my sperm donor, but yeah, never met him. Don't even know his last name. It's just been the way it is. That's obviously shaped my personality when you come into the world in a state of abandonment. You know what I mean? In reality, but don't get me wrong, man. The Lord has blessed me in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, time has run its course. My mom's second husband, David Charles Marcoux, he just passed last October. He is my dad. I named my oldest child David Charles Marcoux II. Give you any idea what kind of esteem I hold that man in. And my two childhood best friends, their dad stepped in and helped raise me. In fact, one of them that also just passed this last April, he used to call me affectionately the son he didn't have the pleasure of making. So,
wow.
So I lost one, but I got three great ones, man. Yeah. And then my number three was my childhood best friend, Steve Elliott's dad, Jerry Elliott. He's still with us. And my last son, my sixth child, my fifth son, is named Elliott Snyder Marcoux, which was the last name of all the three men that raised me. So I got a chance to give back to them and honor them through that as well. So yeah, it sucked and it was confusing as a child to come up in that kind of setting. But and now that I get to look back at it, man, I was blessed. I was truly blessed. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Brian, how about you? What is on your heart this morning?
Man, that's not the right question because we'll be on here for a couple hours. But anyway, yeah, lots, every day, lots. Mostly, regardless of how long I've been doing this, 10 years in full-time ministry now. Every time I walk through this door in the church, I'm thankful for where the Lord's got me at and the life that I have. As bogus as it is sometimes, but I don't know. Lately it's been kind of a dual thing, but the good outweighs the bad. Just the hurt and pain for what's going on in our communities and our kids and this world, the American part of the world, and just the drug problem and the suicides and the mental health issues and the overpopulation in the prisons and all that stuff. And we work with all those people. But then on the good side, like I say, the last couple of weeks we've had two different youth events, one in Spooner 2 weeks ago and one in Clear Lake last week. And, kids making the decisions for the Lord, and the kids just, they're sick of this bogus stuff going on, and they just want something real. They want to know love, and Jesus is love. But then we have this revival service going on now. We're in day 3 of that now tonight. So I think we've done like 10 baptisms in the last week alone. Last night we just baptized a young girl, 13, 14 years old, part of our family, really. She's been on the back of my bike for about 3 or 4 years now since we've been up here. And she finally made the decision to get baptized last night. And it was probably the other than my son and another lady, probably the third most honorable person I've had the distinct honor of baptizing. And it was huge because she's got so much going on in her life. And so, yeah, just the hurt and the pain, but yet the good things that the Lord is doing, that we know the end game. We have the Bible. We know the end, what's going to happen in the end, and He's going to win, and we're going to be in glory. So we get the whole game is trying to bring as many people up to glory with us as we can.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, and I think most people do, you also go to schools. So you're a pastor. You're also I think would just be called a motivational speaker. Right? Would that fall under that umbrella? You go to schools and you don't talk about God because, it's a public school, et cetera, but you talk about meth mostly, but drugs. Is that right? Could you give us like a minute version, just a recap? What is that when you go to these schools? Because the schools, and you've been in our area too, you've been all over Northwest Wisconsin and farther. What do you talk about when you go there?
A lot of things. I basically give my personal story and all the things I've been through in my life, and just showing the kids I can relate. I've been there, I've done that, and here's the poor choices I made. So I talk a lot about choices. Talk a lot about bullying, drugs. Just all the stuff the kids are going through. I used to have a story because I started all this junk in my life when I was 10, and it's really made even more of a reality now because I see my middle son who's 10, and I'm like, wow, that's when I was doing all this.
Right.
My son is so innocent and stuff. But I used to have a story, but these kids are already 8, 9, 10 years old. They're already well into this. Families of meth users, and they're having to step up and be the parent in the home, and just so much stuff.
So you're saying that you used to have a story, as in it was unique.
Yeah, it was unique. Not
anymore.
No.
And speaking of that, I want to ask you both this. You talked about son being 10, and you and I do this Brian Cole story thing on Sundays that we air those. I think we're coming up on episode 18.
18.
Yeah. And I look at like Kenneth. He's my son. Now, technically he's my stepson, and I've never referred to him as my stepson because he's my son. I love that dude. Mm-hmm. But I look at him, and sometimes he has to do something, and I'm thinking, and he's 13, and I'm thinking, well, no, I don't want him going around here or doing this or whatever, because I know what I would have done at 13, and it wouldn't be good choices. I guarantee you, if there's an opportunity for me to make a bad choice, I did.
Yeah.
It's weird because I see
Aaron soon.
What's that?
He'd be meeting Aaron soon.
Yeah, right. So, but the weird thing is that he makes excellent choices, and it's like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
Like, that's not me. So I have a harder time, like, trusting him because I know what I would have done. Aaron, have you experienced that with your kids? That I know what I would have done, and it wouldn't have been necessarily great, or maybe you were just a fantastic child. No idea.
That if I went with that last one, that would be a blatant lie. I do have that. I do have that in my oldest son, David. I look at that kid and cannot tell you how proud I am of that boy. The first girl that he showed interest in, we asked him, we said, David, what attracts you to this girl, And she's smart, she's funny, and she's a Christian.
Amen.
When I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, none of those things would
we
have been
all know
on
what
my
the
list
three of us were attracted to at 13
woman.
years old. Right.
When I was 12 years old, I was dating exclusively 18-year-old women because I had a different set of interests than most 12-year-olds did, And I look at that stuff, and I feel like I spent from 12 to 18, right after my mom and dad got divorced until I was about 19, I spent as much effort as I could making the worst decisions I could.
All right.
And then I look at this guy and it just blows my mind. He went and volunteered this weekend to go clean someone else's yard, and he was offended when the guy tried to give him a tip. He goes like, "No, I was doing this out of the goodness of my heart. Like this. I'm not doing this for money. I'd ask my dad if I wanted money. Like I'm just, it's completely different than me." Which brings me back to what you said in the beginning: thankfulness, because that temperament, that different mindset comes from. I think it comes from an intact family as much as we can, but also my wife's side of the genetic pool. She's contributed to the point where he has that softer edge. He doesn't have those things that I had, that anger that I had, those things. She's just a gentler soul. And as you know, she's going through chemotherapy right now with breast cancer and stuff. And it's been a blessing to watch her strength through that process. She has her last chemo treatment this Friday. But to see her go through that, and in a different show sometime we can talk about, I didn't want her to do chemo, to be honest with you. The surgery was successful. There was no cancer in it. I felt the rest of it, you just trust in God. And she went through it. She's a nurse practitioner. She's a medical mind. I'm not. So she made her decisions and she went forward with it. And but it's been a blessing to see her strength through that. And in all actuality, there's been people coming up that have said, just to see the way she's handled that has inspired me to go handle some of my personal stuff. She doesn't have a wig. She doesn't wear that. We have the same haircut, and she rocks it way better than I do. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. The strength of that woman. As much as she gets on my nerves, because I did tell you she's my wife, right? But her strength is something else, man. And that I see come through in my son, David, to bring it back to your point.
Yeah. And can we just give an amen to all of our wives? No kidding.
Amen.
Where would the three of us be without our wives?
Amen.
We wouldn't be doing this right
good.
now. Yeah.
Right.
We'd probably all be back joining Brian in prison.
Right.
Yeah. So you had brought up, Brian, a little bit ago about drugs that you talked to those kids about, and obviously we talk about that here on the show, even though it's Positive Tuesday Benefits show. We discuss because a lot of times we talk about the headlines and things that are happening in specifically Barron County, or usually it's Barron County, and obviously there's meth. Now we have a district attorney who has very good insight into this because he sees this stuff all of the time and all these charges, or decides, or whatever it is he does. And then you, of course, being addicted to this in the past and going out and talking about meth. So I'd like to kind of ask both of you, and I'm not sure where to kind of start with this, just about in our area, Northwest Wisconsin, is meth still the thing? Because that's what it seems. I mean, I guess there's fentanyl that's kind of coming in, and maybe, Aaron, you could get into that if you're starting to see some of those things happening. But meth is everywhere, and it doesn't seem to be going away. I don't know if, Aaron, you locking people up or charging people, I should say, for meth, and if Brian, you just going and talking to kids about meth. You guys are doing all these things, but it seems to be getting not better. So how do we fix that? Aaron, I'll start with you.
I'll let Brian go. Did you say you're starting with me?
Whoever wants to go. That's
I was going to say go with Brian because I took the last one. I've got an opinion on everything.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an easier fix than we tend to make it. It's really simple. It's really a result of two things, and that's parenting, or the lack thereof.
Amen.
And the values and morals in our society going to shot.
What do you mean? How do values and morals tie in? Like the parenting, I think I can.
Yeah,
I think
because
we all
it's
get
the
that
values
one.
and morals there. Yeah. Well, it's one thing when you have a bad family, or no family, or only one person in the family, or the family treats you like crap, or whatever, or the family isn't there for you. But then you go into the schools and stuff, and it wasn't really that long ago. I'm only 57. So, and I never really went through middle school and high school. I was locked up, but the little time I was in middle school, man, and especially in elementary, they didn't tolerate stuff in the schools. Man, I had that big old ruler cross my hand more than one time and had my ears pulled more than one time on the way into the principal's office, and they just didn't tolerate it. And today, whether it's in the schools or in the homes, it seems like the kids have jurisdiction over everything. I mean, when I was a youth pastor in Stanley, there was 3 youth groups in the area, and we were kind of the youth group known for the bad kids.
Yeah.
And we had a couple kids that were on probation, and 13, 14 years old, and there's stuff going on in their home that these kids are starting some stuff, and the police officers roll in, and basically the kids have the authority, man, and the kids remain home. They don't put them in juvie too much anymore, and they just slap them on the hands all the time, and don't lay your hands on your kids. And so that's what I mean by the morals and stuff, is just we're given the jurisdiction over to our kids nowadays, whether it's accountability is lacking. Exactly, Steve. There is no accountability anymore. We have to let them be themselves.
That's all. We won't get into that specifically. Maybe that'll be for a different show.
Right.
But 100% agree. And I think you're right. It does start really at the parenting. Now, we haven't even said you need Jesus, right? This isn't even about God right now. No. This is just about having parents parenting. And I've always felt like with a boss or my parents, and I love, and Brian, you know my mom very well, and
yes.
Aaron, you know my parents. I've always believed that you should have like 5% fear of your parents. I think that's a healthy amount. And maybe a little more, that's okay. And I'm 45, and I still have a little bit of fear of my parents, right? Not like they're going to hurt me kind of fear,
right.
not that, but the respect for that authority and who they are and as parents. And I feel like we've kind of lost that a little bit. Now we just want to be our kids' friends, right? We want to be liked, and especially if you get divorced families, and that's okay. I'm divorced too. But as long as there's a mom and a dad, or I should say 2 parents parenting, whether it's a stepdad or a biological father, that's fine. But man, hold them accountable. I think that's kind of what they want, and to talk to them, have a discussion with them. But do you think that if that took place in every home, now that's impossible, but if it did, that would drastically reduce meth and drugs in our communities?
I think we just have to take a look at where society was even 50 years ago. And yes, we had family values and morals back then. And we had mostly the families were together.
Aaron,
and I would say, what are the kids looking for that they're filling that hole in their life with methamphetamine, alcohol, and other drugs, right? Because that's what it is. They're filling a hole in their life with that, right? I mean, I'm sure Brian can talk with the basis of his addiction. And I know the stuff that I struggled with when I was a youth, I was trying to fill holes. I was trying to fill things, get answers for stuff I didn't understand. You come from a broken home. It's natural for a child to say, why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't I enough that my dad wouldn't have stayed here for me, or my mom wouldn't have been here for me? Or why am I not enough that they have to go out and get drunk or get high every weekend or whatever it is? And then that makes you think, well, if they're doing it, maybe I should do it. Kids learn from what they've seen, what they see and what they do, and they repeat the behaviors. That's the way it is. Now, to answer your question kind of in the beginning, I'll just ask myself a question, and it's kind of rhetorical. If you believe that full-blown addiction is a medical disorder, why are you addressing it in the criminal justice system?
Yeah.
So I'll just
wait. Yeah, we're not glossing over this one. I want to make sure I understand it. So say that again, please.
If you believe that addiction is a medical disorder, why are we addressing it in the criminal justice system?
Where else would we address that?
In the health system.
You ask the question. Ask the question. If somebody gets pulled over for a DWI or OWI or something, do they bring them to the hospital or do they bring them to jail?
Well, it depends if they need a blood
usually
draw.
they bring them to the hospital to get the blood draw.
Right.
To get the blood draw.
Right. Yeah, usually it actually is the hospital first, but then to jail.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like possession type of situations. You have someone who's an addict, they're going to possess what they're addicted to. And then you put them in jail to try and deter them from addressing their addiction by getting them locked up or keeping the community safe. Is that going to stop them from desiring methamphetamine? No. They need to be in a treatment setting. They need to be in another setting that's going to address the mental health issue or the behavioral issue or the traumatic issue that underlies their desire for that drug. That's the only way that you're going to get it. Now, I've had a great amount of success in my life when it came to my improper desires and things like that through the Lord, through my relationship with the Lord. He took care of a lot of that stuff for me. But the reality is I see these people come in every single day and they have addiction issues, and you put them in jail, as particularly a jail with no programming, and then you put them back on the street sometime later with no rehabilitative programming, no plan, and you put them back in the exact same environment that they came from, with the same friends that they used to hang around, who are doing the same drugs they used to do, and you expect them not to fall back into it just because you told them to stop? No. You need to give them a new setting. You need to give them a new set of tools, a new mindset. You have to change a therapist that I used to work with. You got to change your playground, your playmates, and your playthings. That's the only way that you're going to overcome that. Yeah. You know, in the struggle with addiction, at former our Judge Pat Madden in Iron County, he's deceased now, but he also used to say, the only way you know you beat your addiction is when you die from something else. It's a lifelong struggle. It's every single day you're going to have to fight this. And they need tools to be able to do it. Tools they obviously weren't given, or they wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. Nobody wants to grow up being a drug addict. Nobody wants to grow up being an alcoholic. It's they either didn't have a choice, or they were filling a hole, or they were taught the wrong thing.
Yeah, I do a mic drop with you, brother, but it's cost some money.
Yeah, and actually, I want to keep going on that, but I want to circle back to this. Renee Hewitt, this was about talking about where we were like 50 years ago in families. And she's, I disagree, years ago was hush hush. She's got a very good point. Like, no joke, there is that part of that element. Like, even when I was growing up, great Christian family, great parents, but like when it comes like my dad and I love my father and respect him, like he's awesome. But we didn't really have a whole lot of conversations. It was just something that was necessarily hush hush. It just, and maybe it was just because that's just kind of how Dad is, and a little uncomfortable maybe having certain conversations. I was talking to my brother-in-law, David, and Brian, he was just, if you recall, he was just up at your church, drove from the motorcycle from the cities over there, and we were talking about our kids, and kind of like what we were talking earlier about our kids, that when it comes to those conversations, we look at our children, and specifically our sons, and like, why are they doing so well? That's so weird. And one common thing that we have found, or a commonality, was we engaged with our sons as fathers, because that relationship between a father and a son, I can't speak to women or daughters, that I have no idea, but that relationship between a father and a son is sacred. Critical. It is so incredibly important for so many reasons. And I had a wonderful role model as a father, but in terms of just, having discussions, I never felt comfortable going to him, and he didn't really, talk to me about stuff. No, I don't mean just like sex or whatever, just about a lot of things. We just didn't really have a lot of deep conversations. So I actually agree with what Renee is saying. There was a lot of that hush-hush, or if there were somebody that's drugs, we don't talk about that. Yep. And there was a lot of that. So anyone have any?
That's true. My dad, when he grew up very poor. He had onion and mustard sandwiches is what he got sent to school with in his lunch. That's what his lunch was. He was raised a lot by his aunts and uncles and stuff like that, and it was a different way. They didn't go into the Department of Human Services. They went and lived with their aunt, or they went and lived with their grandma while somebody dealt with their addiction, or an unwanted pregnancy, or something like that they went. And it was hush hush, and it was kept under the covers. There was a different stigma that came along with those kind of things. I'm not saying it's much more out in the open now than it was then, and it was covered up with. But my point is that even when they went to go live with grandma, or they went to go live with the aunts, and they went to go do that stuff, they protected the kids from seeing all of that. They took those kids out of that environment, put them in a healthier environment, and then figured out a way to deal with them, whatever that was back then. They probably didn't have Betty Ford clinics all over the place and stuff like that in the 50s. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they had their own way of dealing with it. But the whole thing was they protected the children from seeing that as much as they could. And not always, not always. Well, some kids, like the movie The Shack, right? Remember that movie? Mm-mm. Mac? Oh, you got to see that movie, bro, if you haven't seen that movie. But Mac grew up with an alcoholic father who beat him, and he ended up killing his dad one day because he was so abusive to the family. Like that stuff existed. I'm not trying to say that those things don't exist or that they didn't exist. That's definitely not the point they were trying to say. But the point is to beat something, to get over something, to conquer something, to have victory. You need tools.
Hmm.
You need training and skills to be able to do that, and most of the people that are suffering from those were never given those tools and
Hmm.
skills, and then they come to us, and then we're supposed to hit them. Like, I had a boss one time, he said, I've got one tool in my toolbox, and that's a hammer, and the only question is how hard I hit them. Brian, you probably felt a lot of that in your life, dealing
Yeah.
with people in my position and those kind of situations, and I think that that's absolutely ridiculous. you know you can't do that. You can't expect change. People do not respond and change with the negative influences, with outside negative force. We know through evidence-based decision making that people respond to positivity. That's how they change. If you want someone to hear constructive criticism, it's up to the point that you have to say 6 positive things before you address the one negative thing in order for them to hear you.
I'm going to start
And that's
counting now.
compounded, I think.
Every time Drew should talk to me, I'm going to start counting. That's 1,
Uh-oh.
2, 3. And as soon as I hit 6, I'm like, oh, okay, buckle up. Here it comes.
Right? Well, where's it? What does she want me to change? But you add that into the social networking and the socialization that our kids have to deal with, and the influences they have, and the amount of their identity that comes from snaps and likes and thumbs up and tweets and all this other stuff, which I probably am not qualified to talk about because I have zero social media presence at all. I'm out of that age, that genre. I don't get that. But I see it in my kids, and I see it when they think that they should get some kind of social feedback and don't get it.
Hmm.
It creates those holes that are going to need to be filled with something, and it makes me nervous.
Brian, thoughts on that? He went through several things there.
Yeah. It went through so many things. I don't know what the original question was,
Oh,
but as far as the
that's
the
right.
lady
Nobody was
who
listening,
responded-
so it's fine.
Yeah, especially the lady who responded that well, back then they used to hide things. Yeah, well, we don't live in that society anymore. We are this, like I said, from 50 years ago. We are radically a different society altogether. We deal with things differently, and
Some for the better.
yeah, some not well, a
Some.
couple, but yeah, well, it's out in the open now. I mean, nobody's really got nothing to hide, and it seems like we're in a society of, hey, look at me. We want our things known. We want to be noticed. We want our issues and our presence and all the things in our life, like with social media. And I think maybe that helped bring it on. That, hey, here's what's going on with me today. I'm sick, and there's this and that and the other thing going on, as to where, years ago, yeah, we didn't talk about that stuff. That was family issues. We don't want that out in the public, and we just don't live there anymore. We don't live in Leave It to Beaver and My Three Sons, where the parents don't even sleep in bed together in the same bed on TV. We're radically way different than that kind of a society now. But with the meth deal, I think, yeah, there's definitely, I agree with Aaron that there's holes. One of the things that I bring up in school, dealing with choices and stuff, and gateway drugs, and people hate that. They hate hearing. I used to hate that when I was in school, and when I bring that up, I look, because usually it's the kids up in the upper bleachers. They'll roll their eyes or do this with their head, and it's like, yeah, because you guys are already hooked on stuff. That's why you're making those faces. But my gateway drug was cigarettes. It started with hanging out with kids that smoke cigarettes. And we know that within that group of kids smoking or juuling or whatever it is that they're doing, there's kids in there that are doing things worse than that. So when you already made that first bad choice to smoke that cigarette or take that vape, when the other stuff comes out, when the doobie comes out, it makes it a little bit easier to make that choice and smoke that. And then when you're in that clique with those who are smoking weed, there's always those within that clique are doing more than weed. So now when that stuff comes out and a line gets laid out of coke or whatever it is, or here's an ecstasy pill, you already made 2 stupid choices. It's going to make it a little easier to make that third bad choice, and you take that, and it just goes on and on. And the meth. Unfortunately, I say meth has changed the game, because people There, like my brother said, and I say that to the kids in school. When I was sitting in the bleachers as a young boy, listening to a knucklehead like me talking about, just saying no to drugs and all that, it's like, yeah, like I'm going to grow up and be like him.
Yeah.
I never had any intuition in my being when I was a kid that, boy, I want to grow up and I want to be a druggie and a convict and spend 27 years in prison. You don't think that, but it happens. And the one thing about meth that has changed the game is a person doesn't start out using, one day they wake up and they're with friends and they just inject some heroin into them. You don't start out with heroin. You don't start out with crack. Stuff leads up to that. However, meth is completely different, right? The one hit wonder. Take one hit wonder, what happened to the rest of your life. You could never do any drugs. And if you're at a party without even any inclination of using drugs or drinking or whatever it is, you just want to hang out with your friends. And I always tell the especially the middle school, high school boys, you're in this party and you just want to hang out with your friends, and you're on the couch and there's these two hotties next to you. And guess what? These two hotties are addicted to meth and they're being run by a meth dealer, and they're out there to get more customers, and they're on each side of you and they're rubbing up on you, and they hand you a bowl of what you think is just weed. You don't know that it's laced with marijuana or laced with meth.
Mm-hmm.
And all you got to do is take a couple hits off that thing, and guess what? Probably you're going to be a meth addict. That has changed the game. One hit of meth,
You're done.
I don't know many people that every once in a while I come across some that, I just do meth on
I
weekends.
tried it
It's
once,
like,
wasn't for me.
what? Yeah, right. It just doesn't usually happen that way. So in that, meth has changed the game. But yeah, it's always, I started using because the hole in me with taking that first hit off the cigarette, which led to marijuana, was looking for acceptance. I had a father who was brutal. I was bullied as a kid because I was short and had buck teeth. And these older kids started talking to me and they offered me a cigarette. I did it for acceptance. And that's how it started for me. That was my hole.
And if you had that acceptance at home and from your father,
exactly,
the likelihood has been pretty low.
Yep.
So speaking of,
no, and I exactly the same thing. Mine was my cousin who was 5 years older than me. He had a troubled youth, and he was smoking and chewing. I had my first dip of tobacco, and my first cigarette a week away from each other when I was 8 years old, and it was the same thing because I looked up to my cousin like he was the world, and he offered me one, and I was like, I'll do anything to make him happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So when you work with these addicts now, it's like, we put them through this Almond Tree program, which is a 14-week long faith-based addictions program. One of the things that you have to work with these guys with is not just the drugs, but the mental health issues and stuff that's come on as a result of that, and really the foundation of, okay, we're going to deal with the drugs, but we need to go back as to why did you start them in the first place? Because that is what needs to be dealt with. If that doesn't get dealt with, it's going to be no help for you to, get released from the drugs, because you're still going to have that hole that we're talking about in you. So we need to fill that hole in with something substantial.
Aaron,
I'll tell you that's the hardest thing right there too, Ben, is
what
you can ask a lot of people who've been in the system, and Brian probably heard this a million times. I heard it from my brother. I go do 90 days standing on my head. That's nothing.
Amen.
I got a disorderly, I got a drunken disorderly, I got a possession of THC, I got this drug, I got that drug. I'll go do 6 months. That's nothing. Now you go and you peel all the layers of that onion back and you go back to your childhood trauma. That's the hardest thing you're going to be able to do. Yeah. Putting someone in a box for 3, 4, 5 months, that's nothing. That's easy peasy, bro. Like that, they'll do that standing on their head. You get them into a psychiatrist or a psychologist and you start dealing with those issues, that's what they're afraid.
No kidding.
That's what they don't want to do. That's hard work.
That's the hard work. That's what I heard there.
Oops. Yep, that's the hard work.
Oh, there we go. It was like your internet. Washburn County internet.
Or what are we doing?
No, everything was good. Yeah, I couldn't hear you. And I actually wanted to ask you a question here, Aaron. So you're a man of faith, but you're a district attorney. And this is kind of a topical thing right now because it's an election cycle. And it's a lot of people say that God should not be in our laws and etc. and whatever. Wherever it stands on that, it's fine. But as a Christian man who also is the things that you've been talking about, throwing someone in jail isn't necessarily the answer all the time, but some people, I mean, there has to be consequences or actions too. When you make decisions, when you get these things on what to charge someone with, do you go, what would Jesus do? What does the Bible tell me to do? Or is it I can't have that a part of it? Or maybe a better way to ask that question is, does your faith come into any part or percentage of your decision-making as a district attorney?
Ooh, you're putting him off.
I am putting him on the spot there, man. But hey, I'm just saying.
Where's this hang up button? There's a hang up button. Obviously, if you're going to be a Christian, and Amanda just joined us too, so she probably didn't hear your congratulations. Congratulations, Amanda.
He's just trying to ignore the question. We put that photo up of you, Amanda, earlier.
No, so listen. I had to talk to my counselor a little while ago when I was dealing with some stuff with my wife and having to deal with forgiveness, right? And I was the guy who I wore unforgiveness as a badge. I cut you out, dude. I cut my mom out of my life for 20 years because of what she did to my dad. You know what I mean? That was my mom, right? And I said, well, I can't really call myself a Christian if I'm not going to pursue forgiveness for my wife, am I? Right? I can't call myself a Christian if I'm not going to pursue forgiveness. Yeah. Christianity, if this is what you truly are, it touches every fiber of your being. I cannot sit here and tell you I have some ability to shut off my belief system and it has nothing to do with my job. Yeah. If I did, I'd be lying because I have this picture right here.
Amen.
On my wall. Amen. And what that is, that's my favorite one, right? That's Jesus reaching down through the water to pick up Peter, because there's not a single one of us who haven't been there and needed a hand up. Not a hand out, a hand up. And that's how it influences me. What is my definition of justice? What does that look like? What does it come from? For some people, it's all punishment and deterrence. But we've got decades now of studies that show that stuff doesn't work. We've got decades of studies that shows the DARE program leads kids to drugs. It doesn't lead them away from drugs.
Yeah. Did it really?
Yes, the DARE program has a negative effect. These kids never seen marijuana before, and then you show them a joint when they're in 4th and 5th grade and tell them that they're going to have a great time if they smoke it, but don't do it.
Right.
You know, like, it doesn't work. Scared straight doesn't work. Yeah. Look up the statistics.
Eve, don't touch that tree.
Those programs don't work. Yeah, you know what I mean? So yeah, obviously my faith affects what I do, but it comes in from my sense of what is justice and what I just soapboxed on before.
Yeah.
I can give you statistics. I can fill up this jail across the hallway from me and justify the county board wanting to put an addition on it and build 30 more beds, and I can fill them before they're even built, and we can have a budget overflow of $250,000 for farming out inmate beds going to other counties because they have room that we don't. I can do that all day long, but we're never going to break that cycle. It's never going to change because all we're going to do is put them in the box and take them out of the box. We never give them the tools to change. I want to break those cycles. And that's when it comes to addiction, and that's when it comes to criminal behavior, criminal mindset, like we've been talking about a lot today, is how do we that cycle? It killed me. One day when I was assistant district attorney in Sawyer County, to have 3 generations of one family all in court on the same day. Grandpa, dad, grandson.
Come on.
Unrelated charges. It was a way of life. It's a way of life. It's the way things were. That really highlighted to me that this cycle needs to be broken. And how do you break that cycle? By getting those people in a situation where they deal with their demons and they'll deal with that underlying childhood trauma. That is the hard work. You want to put someone through the paces, you want to change someone, that's where you do it. It's not done in a box with steel bars. That doesn't change people's behavior.
Brian, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. But the thing I wanted to say is, man, Aaron, I Ben, I hated Jesus freaks more than anything in life. 14 years ago, that changed. I've been in Christ for 14 years now, and I can tell you, I didn't know nothing about it back then. I just hated him. I didn't understand it, didn't know about it. But I can tell you with all honesty that, man, I would so much rather have a good, godly Christian man sitting on that judge's bench and in the DA's seat and as an attorney than somebody who was not, if I had to go in front of somebody back in my old days.
Wow.
Because I mean, they, like you said, it's in every fiber of your body. It's who you are. We have the Holy Spirit. We have God living in us. Yeah, it will change only those who truly want to change. Exactly. And so if you have God living in you, and God is a God of justice and mercy and forgiveness and grace, I always say I need those things every single day so I can give those things out every single day. So I would much rather have a judge or a DA or whatever that's full of mercy and forgiveness and grace and wants to be a good example for Jesus, or wants to be that ambassador for Jesus Christ, than somebody that's sitting on the bench that's a worldly person and only has themselves in mind and what they think is right and wrong.
We have a question here. So this is from Jesse James. Well, it's page Jesse James for state senate. I'll put it on the screen in a second, but I don't know why it still says 4 state senators. He's already pretty much a senator. I mean, nobody's running against him right now. He won the primary. I don't think there's a Democrat running against. But interesting thing about Jesse James, first of all, great dude. I think he even went to school, cop school with my brother, like many years ago, or a long time ago. He's actually the only senator, or I think even legislator in Wisconsin, that's also a current law enforcement officer, and says, "Good morning, great show. Sorry it's so small there, guys. Love this conversation. Question: do you think forced treatment / interventions work?" Now, there's more to that, but I think that was the question, and whether initiated through the family or the courts. We have to get the heart of the matter and start with the why. Mental health, AODA issues are all intersecting. A person's mental and emotional state plays a huge influence into their addictions. So who wants to take that one? Not sure.
Real quick. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron. Let me just say that.
All right, Brian, you go.
Stupid leg.
Go, Aaron.
I just want to get through is, hey, don't think that there isn't accountability. You look through the Bible, there is accountability through and through and through. And accountability is something that always has to be there. I don't look at, somebody doesn't come in at sentencing and say, I found Jesus when I was in jail. And I go, oh man, I can't put this guy in jail. Yeah. I was talking to you about this, Ben. There was a guy who deserved prison. He deserved prison because his behaviors needed to be punished, needed to be deterred, and the public needed to be protected from that individual while they're struggling with their addictions and while they're struggling with their mental health issues. And I simply said, hey, if you truly found God, I support that 100% as a Christian. And I just remind you, Paul wrote a good part of the New Testament from a prison cell. Don't believe Jesus can't reach you in a prison cell and can't still be sitting beside you.
Well, that's how Brian came to Christ.
Right. So in that question, as far as forced treatment
and interventions, do they work?
Yeah. Not just us as people or treatment centers or whatever working with somebody, because, all these years, man, I've got so many moms and dads and brothers and sisters that want their son or daughter or family member to get help. And it's like, you can't force somebody to get help. But as far as the forced treatment thing, yes and no, because most of the time it's not going to happen. I mean, I don't know how many treatment facilities the judge ordered me to go to, and it didn't mean squat. I got smarter in there. I met excellent druggies in there. As a matter of fact, when I was young, I was probably 16, 15, and the judge sentenced me to go through a treatment center in St. Croix Falls, and I met a dope grower, an old hippie dope grower there. I ended up living with him when I got out, and he showed me the whole trade. So, I mean, in L.A. Phillips Treatment Center, out of the probably half dozen times I was there, most of the time I dealt drugs while I was in there. So it doesn't make any difference. But there are exceptions, because I am a great example of that. I wasn't forced to go to treatment, but when I was in the county jail and they had that almond tree program, the faith-based addictions program available, That's what transformed my life. But I did go in there voluntarily, not for the Jesus stuff, but to self-help myself off drugs because I knew I had a problem. So it was kind of a voluntary thing, but I didn't have any inclination to go in there and getting saved and having this happen, 13 years later and everything in between. But so yes and no, there can be instances where someone's forced to go to treatment. Maybe they've finally had enough of themselves. Maybe they're in there long enough to sit and really get the fog cloud out of their mind of the drugs they've been using and realize what's been going on in their lives. It's just that, it's really up to the individual, man. So, but I don't think most of the time that people are forced into treatment change.
Good point.
And statistically, from what I've read, forced treatment is a little bit less effective than voluntary treatment. And so if you force someone to go, it's, let's say 60-40, right? It's less effective than voluntary treatment, but it still has positive effects. And most of the people I've talked to that have come out of it said, not so much that being forced into treatment made me want to quit doing drugs or made me quit living the life that I wanted to live. They got to hit rock bottom before they do that. That's just a common thing in all of us. You have to get to that point where you don't want it anymore. Life just sucks too much. But what they do say is I now have the tools to be able to do it when I want to do it. Treatment only works the last time, right? That's the bottom line. It only works the last time.
I just don't know which one.
If you've been there once or 15 times, it only works the last time. And that's absolutely right. Everyone's rock bottom is different. Every person is different. Every situation is going to be different. Yeah. But it does have some benefit. And there are people that want to come out and they get that sobriety. I was working with a guy who is sober for 30 days. He's recently relapsed and now he is back in another treatment program. And when I met him, he had just gotten his 30-day chip. Was the longest in his adult life he had ever been sober. He made it 8 months. And then he relapsed, and people said that was a massive failure. Look at the stupid thing he did. He had 8 months of sobriety. I said, he had 8 months of sobriety.
Amen to that.
That was a victory, man.
A huge victory.
Yeah. And instead of abandoning him, his community got back around him and said, dude, get back on that horse. We got to find another treatment center. We got to get reinvested in this. And he's seen it, and he did that. That was a victory. That wasn't a failure. But the thing is like I said before, playmates, playgrounds, playthings. If you want to change, you can't go back to the same community that you were doing your drugs in with the same friends that are still using and expect you to have the strength to not do that. Humans weren't made that strong. Regardless of where do you think we came from. You can't put yourself back in the same environment and think you're going to be what changes everything else. It's going to suck you right back in every time.
Are you sure, though? Because I think
I'm sure.
Are you sure?
Aaron and I 100% on that, because whether it's the DE side or the side where I've been there, done that, now working with those who are doing that, that is the biggest failure that you see, and the biggest thing I push on these guys immediately when they start the addictions program. Exactly. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Show me who you're hanging with, I'll tell you where you'll be next week and in 5 years. But that's the biggest downfall. These guys, whether they're sitting in prison for 10 years and they come out and have their old clique come pick them up, guess what's going to be the first thing that's busted out? These guys are coming out and they're going right back in with the same clique, people who don't give a crap about them. They don't come and visit them in the jail and send them money and all that. They're gone. They're out of mind until they come back out and it's like, hey, bro, here, take a hit. I'm here for you. Is going right back to these knuckleheads that they were doing this stuff with in the first place, man. Biggest downfall. And that includes even family members sometimes. You got to get the family members even who are doing that out your lives, man.
And going back to what you originally said, everything. Again, we weren't even talking about homes need Jesus or God or faith. It's just start with parenting. Can we just start there? And you don't have to believe. You can be an atheist if you want. Fine. Let's just start with parenting.
Yeah, and the rock bottom deal, I don't even want to go there because, the rock bottom thing, some people got to hit the rock bottom, but in this day and age with the fentanyl and the meth and the heroin and all that stuff, the bad stuff that's going around, a lot of these people's rock bottom is death, man, and I don't want to see anybody hit the rock bottom.
No.
Yeah, that's true. You die on your way down there. You don't even get there sometimes, especially with the crap that's on the street. And this fentanyl, man, this is bad news, bad news. And they're lacing they're lacing stuff
Everything.
with it, like you were talking about. People don't even know it.
Yep.
It's terrible.
Are you seeing a lot of those cases, or an increase in cases or PCs coming to your office, or the district attorney's office, that have fentanyl involved? More? Is it getting to the point where I'm starting to get a little concerned? Is it alarming, or is it? I mean, it's going up a little, but it's still drugs. Drugs are drugs.
I think it's alarming because it depends on what it is. So the fentanyl and the metabolites and the different analogs, some of them, like I think it's the carboxy or something, the carfentanil, is so potent that just a couple of grams touching your skin can cause you to overdose. There's been cases where law enforcement officers have gone into the homes and there was fentanyl on the door jambs and they touched it and they fell out while they were right in, and that stuff can kill you just by touching it, not even using it. And it's a thing with drug addiction, like, you guys remember the old Chasing the Dragon kind of thing that was popular on YouTube a few years ago?
Yeah.
That's the thing. A lot of these people are looking for the next biggest high. And once they get it, they're always trying to recreate it. And fentanyl is that new high. But man, the consequence is death. The consequence is death, bottom line. And I don't think people understand that. They think they can control it. They think they can Narcan their way out of it. But man, you look at the statistics. Our children are dying. And then this isn't very positive for a positive Tuesday.
Right. It's real.
They're dying. This is real, though. And we need to do something about that. We need to teach our children that they are loved thoroughly for who they are, no matter what. They are absolutely loved. My kid was disrespectful 2 days. My number 2 son was disrespectful. I had to go talk to his mom. She was handling him. He came out. He apologized. The first thing I did to him is I said, I love you. That's what my dad would tell me. He was the first man in my life that said, I love you, right? Which is supposed to be your dad. But remember, he was my mom's second husband. He's the one, he adopted me, wasn't my biological dad. He's the one that introduced love into my life in that way, as a man to a man, child, son, father, son, like we talked about, the importance of that relationship. But that's what we need to be telling our kids, no matter what, that they're loved. It doesn't matter what Snapchat says or what any other application or anyone on any other application says. We love you, and you don't need to go be anything else but you. And you don't need to find these drugs to fill those holes. Yeah. Love needs to fill those holes.
Which one of you can tell me, and you both probably could, what is the Bible verse that talks about sins of the fathers bestowed on the sons or something? Right?
Yeah, the generational stuff.
Right. And I'm reminded of that because both of you have talked about the impact. Well, Brian, you didn't really get into it too much, but we know, especially during our shows that we do with the Brian Cole story, etc. But you had, you did touch on it a little bit. But both of you had, in terms of your biological fathers, were terrible, or non-existent, or whatever. But I was bringing this up to my mom the other day after one of our Bible studies that we do here on Sundays. It wasn't this specifically, but it was along these lines. And she said, yes, but you can break the cycle. Yeah. You can break that. And I just want to say to both of you, I don't know if Aaron just froze there or something. Oh, no, there he is. He just has that look of a frozen face. But no joke, I am proud of you both as fathers. And I'm not even getting into proud of you as Christians, which I totally am. But as fathers, you've broken that cycle. You can break that cycle. Yeah, that's a thing. And you don't, again, that's not a godly thing. Just you can break it.
Yeah, well, even without Jesus, you can just be the father that you're called to be. But yeah, I mean, that'd be a positive Tuesday thing, is just talking about the kids and our relationship. It's like, I even have, the generational thing with my father and their parents before them and before them, just bad. I mean, not with my dad, but alcohol was in that, and you never heard that word, I love you. That did not exist in life. It was just beat, accountability, tape, record your lies so you can bring it to the teacher, all that kind of stuff. Having you followed around by your friends and the cops and everybody, that is just crazy. So then, just before my last arrest, I had a daughter. I guess a girl I was living with when I got to prison. I had nowhere to live and had money, and she didn't have no money, but she had a place to live. I moved in, we had sex, and there was a kid as a result of that. Didn't really, I met her one time when she was 14. Somebody brought her into prison to meet me. And then when I was released, after I got saved, I was released in 2010, and she was locked up in a juvenile detention facility in Eau Claire, and I went to visit her, and I was picking her up weekly to try and have a relationship with her because I did not know her. And of course, I was a judgmental bigot, and she didn't want nothing to do with me anymore because I was living with a family from church. I had 3 boys in their house, and she was dressing inappropriately, and they asked me to ask her that if she comes again to dress appropriately. Well, of course, that was on me. You're a bigot, and I don't want nothing to do with you. And so there was this in-between thing here with my daughter, and now the Lord, Lance, our autistic boy who's 18, he's my stepson, but like you, I've never called him that, and I think he really believes in his mind that I am his father. He doesn't know his other father. So then there's him, and then my 2 boys, 7 and 10, Dylan and Isaiah, that I have had with Marcia in Christ now. I'm still praying for my daughter, like my mom did with me, and brought me into the faith. But with these boys, to be able to have that opportunity to do this all over again and do it right, and not necessarily even I will never be like my dad, but I want to be the father that Christ has made me to be because He borrowed me these kids. And I need to raise them up in Him to be godly men. And I don't have to throw all these rules and regulations and commandments and everything else at them. All I need to do is what Jesus expects of us, and that is to love Him. If I teach my kids just to love Jesus and not do things wrong, because not that they're afraid that Jesus is going to punish them, but that they love their Father, both me and Jesus, so much that they just want to do what's right in their eyes. And so that's how I live with my kids, man. I just want to teach them to love Jesus and to love me and to feel comfortable anytime come to me. Yeah, sometimes there might be discipline. But man, I remember the first time. Yeah, I remember the first time my son did something bad, really bad. And instead of yelling at him and disciplining him, I just stopped and pretty much prayed for a minute because I knew I wanted to explode. And I said, get in the car. And he thought he was in trouble. And this is like he was 4 years old. And I took him up to Dairy Queen, and we had ice cream. And I said, I want this first time of major discipline with you to be an example of God's grace and Dad's grace. Don't think that when you mess up, you're going to get ice cream every time. Start messing up.
Right, that's what I'm hearing.
But what I want to show you is that I love you. You know, you did something wrong, but I'm not going to punish you this time. But I want to just show you what this grace means, and to be able to talk to you and know that you can trust me and come to me when you mess up.
Brian, I don't want to. We could talk about this a lot. We usually go about 45 minutes. We're over an hour already, so we should probably wrap this up. We should totally do this again sometime. I'll just keep asking Fitzy. I'll call a whole bunch of places and ask them if they can keep asking him to come and do speaking events.
Or so Fitzy can come on. Can you get 3 dudes on here?
That'd be great. So let's wrap this up. Last or final words, anything that you want to, maybe just how did this show go for you, or what are your thoughts? Last words. Aaron, we'll start with you.
This was great. It was a great experience. Glad to get an opportunity to talk to you. The only thing I'll say, my proudest moment as a father was when my 3rd son came up to me as a child. This was 3-4 years ago, and said, "Dad, is it mean if I love Jesus more than you?"
Woo, that's awesome.
By the way, what'd you say?
I'd have grabbed him a
Of
hug.
course. No, that's not bad. That's the way it's supposed to be, son. It still brings a tear to my eye now just to be in an environment that was centered in love. You know what I mean? Because it had to be centered in love. And like I said, I didn't get that until my father came into my life, and I didn't know what I was missing until I seen what it was. And that's what it's all about, man. Amen. It's all about love. Always has been, always will be.
Brian, final words. How'd the show go for you?
Man, I love this. I love it. We do our thing on Sunday, but that's just trying to get a story out there to show people that there's hope in life. But this, talking with 2 other great men of God, and not necessarily talking about our religion or our relationship with Christ, but just seeing how different that we operate in life than somebody who maybe doesn't believe in Christ. And even with Aaron, I mean, I know Fitzy and been on the show with Fitzy a couple times, but with Aaron, I've yet to meet the brother yet, but
I
he's
think
my
you may have
brother.
like met him for like a half a second, didn't even know it.
Okay, but just being able to hear his past a little bit and his experience as a father and as a husband, along with you, man, it's great. We all got so much in common. We're all knuckleheads from the past, and now we're knuckleheads in Christ.
Right.
And
Still today, and we wouldn't be here without our wives. And so, so for me, thank you guys.
Exactly.
No kidding, this has been great. I kind of asked you guys before the show if we could just kind of have this more roundtable, just kind of chat and discussion. We had nothing really, I wouldn't say really written down. We literally had nothing written down.
No.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous before. I was a little bit nervous going into this. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if this is like, I don't know what we're talking about. Like Fitzy and I, we've done like 100 and some shows.
Right,
Like, I don't know. Is it? So I'm just saying, thank you for that. Also, no joke, I respect both of you in your professions. Brian, of course, is a motivational speaker, is a pastor, as a jail administrator, doing jail ministry. And Aaron, as the district attorney. I respect you both in your professions, but also as Christian men, as fathers. You are great examples. I consider the two of you my closest friends, or among my closest friends, easily. So thank you for being on. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for your love. And no kidding, thanks for this chat. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
My pleasure. 100%. It was awesome.
Okay, so we're way over our... I don't even know where any of my stuff is right now. It's like all going away. Oh, there we go. So for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you've been watching Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. I should have updated my script. Presented by Professional Exteriors and Interiors. With nearly 20 years of experience, this locally owned and operated business provides quality work both on the outside and on the inside of your home or business, homie. So give them a call today. Numbers on the screen, 715-520-2271. Special thank you to our, panel members today. Washburn County District Attorney Aaron Marcoux and Pastor Brian Cole. And, of course, thank all of you for your comments, for your engagement today. Thank you so very much. Fitzy should be back next week unless we can find, something else for him to do. So until then, thank you for watching. And as always, have a blessed day.